Prisons around the world are built to maintain order and security, but from time to time they become the setting for unbelievable stories that challenge any action or drama movie script. From spectacular escapes involving daring acrobatics, like the Brazilian Danilo Cavalcante, to unexpected moments, such as the unusual relationship between a prison guard and an inmate, these stories show the chaotic and often surreal side of life behind bars. A Russian man who was on trial for homicide tried to escape through the ceiling of the courtroom and came very close to succeeding, forcing the police officers to act quickly to stop his getaway and prevent the worst. Leonid Gracer, who was 18 years old, took the life of his older sister. When he was found at the crime scene in the apartment the two shared, he was naked, praying, and said that he had obeyed Satan's orders. The sister's body had visible ritual images drawn on it, which Gracer had also drawn on his own head. In the district court of the region, his unexpected escape attempt generated considerable turmoil. Gracer even managed to climb onto the little cell's roof where he was locked in, trying to exit through the ceiling, but ended up being stopped by 3 police officers who were there. Footage of his body stuck in the ceiling while the guards beat him and pulled down his pants provided a bizarre scene that went viral everywhere. Asked about his crime, he shows total coldness and no remorse. The Brazilian Danilo Cavalcante, sentenced to life in prison in the United States, ended up escaping from the jail where he was incarcerated in the city of Chester, in the state of Pennsylvania in the United States, causing worldwide repercussions. He was accused of taking the life of his ex-girlfriend, Deborah Evangelista Brandão, in April of 2021. North American authorities issued a statement announcing the escape and also offering a reward of $10,000. He was convicted of the murder on the 16th of August and was supposed to be transferred to a state penitentiary a few weeks later. But before that, he managed to get away. In footage taken by the prison security camera and released, we can see Danilo scaling one of the walls using his hands and legs. Right after that, he camouflages himself and passes unnoticed through the entrance of the place. Danilo was sought for 14 days and was eventually found hiding in a woodpile in a rural area near a tractor store. Danilo did not realize he was surrounded and tried to run, but he was chased down and bitten by a police dog, finally getting caught and locked up again. The Brazilian prison officer Linda de Souza Abreu, 30 years old, was arrested after being filmed while having sexual relations with an inmate in a prison in London, in the United Kingdom. She was charged after a video featuring Linda went viral. In the video, the Brazilian is seen wearing her professional uniform while getting intimate with the prisoner inside a prison cell. The images were recorded by another inmate who was watching. According to a British court statement to a local TV channel in London, Linda was reported to the police and no longer works as part of the staff. The institution also said it does not tolerate corruption. During the hearing, Linda was accused of misconduct in public office, paid bail, and was released. The magistrate Julie Cook granted bail to the Brazilian under 2 conditions. She is forbidden from entering any airport in the country and must be monitored electronically by the courts, according to information from the Telegraph. A female guard was the victim of a bold inmate while serving a meal in the cell and experienced moments of intense tension. She walks down the corridor, kneels near the cell, and begins removing the meals from a box. At that moment, while she's distracted, one of the detainees stretches his hand through the gap in the bars and grabs her hair with all his might. She gets stuck there, with the criminal pulling, while other inmates try to reach for the gun on her waist. Fortunately, another female officer who was nearby heard something strange and arrived in time to save the guard. The whole scene was captured by the prison security camera. If the other guard had not been nearby, the criminals would likely have managed to get hold of the weapon, subdue the guard, or even take her life to start an escape or riot. Luckily, despite the fright, everything ended well. An inmate who was jailed in a penitentiary in Washington in the United States decided during his free time in the cafeteria to simply attack a police officer who sat there at his desk, keeping an eye on the prisoners. Security camera footage of the site shows the inmate walking normally until he suddenly goes for the officer and begins assaulting him. The officer, who is trained and prepared for this, starts fighting back and after a few moments manages to subdue him. He is immobilized by the officer, who was alone and handcuffed. The other inmates present seemed shocked by the scene and approached to try to help the officer. However, before they could help, the officer had already brought the situation under control. Most likely, the inmate, upset about being locked up, thought that by attacking the officer, he could grab his weapon or the key to the place and escape. But obviously, this was not a wise decision at all, and he suffered the consequences. A judge in Argentina was caught on security cameras giving a kiss to a man sentenced to life imprisonment for taking the life of a police officer. The kiss happened in the visitation room of a penitentiary in the city of Trelew in Argentina, located in the southeastern part of the country. The judge who kissed the inmate is named Mariel Suarez. She was part of a panel of judges who convicted the same inmate she kisses on the footage, Christian Bustos. Bustos was convicted for taking the life of a police officer in 2009, and in his trial in 2021, Mariel was one of the votes against the life imprisonment sentence. The Superior Court of Justice released a statement saying that the judge had asked to meet the defendant in the room where he was being held, which is indeed suspicious, as he is considered a highly dangerous offender. Yet, they had no idea it would actually be an intimate encounter. The court also stated that it was investigating the case to understand why the kiss happened and what type of relationship the two had. According to reports, the judge was removed from her position and was likely charged for the misconduct, which indeed happened. A video that surfaced online shows in 2011 the inmate Carlos Cesar dos Santos Lima, known as Zoyo, who was 29 years old at the time, confronting a judge during a criminal hearing at the courthouse in the city of Limeira, which is located 151 kilometers from the city of Sao Paulo, in Brazil. The incident happened on the 30th of September of 2009, but the footage began circulating in 2011. Lima appears seated. Behind him are a military police officer and a prison guard. The judge tells the inmate that he is being accused by the public prosecutor's office of intimidating a witness during a case of attempted homicide from 2004. The magistrate states that, according to the prosecutor's office, there was a jury trial on the 7th of February of 2008 in Limeira, during which Lima allegedly said he would kill a person and the victim of the crime he's accused of if he were convicted. The magistrate then asks the convict if he wants to say anything, but he says no, confirms the threat, and even questions the fact that they made him travel 12 hours to Limeira just to hear what he calls a bunch of nonsense.
É isso aí mesmo aí, demorou, pode condenar aí, não tem problema nenhum não. 12 horas de viagem para escutar essa palhaçada aqui, eu não vou ficar escutando isso daí não.
The inmate goes on to add that nobody there would intimidate him and that he was not afraid of anything.
Não intimida não, rapaz, que é o primeiro comando da capital aqui, inimigo número 1 de vocês, rapaz.
The judge again asks him to admit to the threat, and once more, in a defiant tone, he owns up to it, and of course, ended up suffering serious consequences for it. A video recorded inside a prison in Scotland ended up capturing the moment when a prisoner named Kevin is simply inside his cell with who appears to be the prison director. And the most bizarre part is that the two kiss each other right there. The surprising kiss happens, and they even go inside the cell so that they will not be seen while they get intimate. Shortly after the kiss, she quickly leaves. Apparently, she had gone there just to see and kiss her detained lover, which is completely bizarre and obviously forbidden. Everything was recorded by the inmate himself, who, according to reports, wanted to use the footage as a form of blackmail. The situation, which had been going on for a few months, was discovered by the local authorities, and the director, besides being suspended from her post, was sentenced to prison. Kevin ended up being transferred to another reinforced security cell, and in the end, both had a bad outcome. A female suspect was causing extreme disorder and chaos in a region of the United States, prompting people to report her to the police, who then took her into custody. However, not even in prison did she calm down, giving the officers plenty of trouble. Already in the prison, the woman is placed in handcuffs against the wall, but starts freaking out because the officers are touching her. She yells for them not to touch her, but obviously the officers need to do this to get her under control. Soon after, she is then made to sit down to give her statement, but she quickly becomes agitated, threatening, and going after the sheriff. At that very moment, the officers step in and restrain her, and she assaults one of them, screaming for them not to touch her, and so she ends up being immobilized on the spot so she can calm down. According to some information, she was under the influence of alcohol and drugs, but of course, that does not justify or exempt her from any act, especially threatening and assaulting officers who hold authority there. A policewoman was caught getting involved with an inmate in a penitentiary in South Africa, and the footage, recorded by the inmate himself, was leaked and went viral worldwide. In the images, the inmate sets up his phone, leaves it recording, and begins grabbing and kissing the officer. It is all done with her consent. It is unclear why she allowed the recording, even though she knew the risk of having the content leaked, but she lets him do it, seeing as she watches him set up the phone. The local authorities became aware of the case, and the officer was immediately removed from her position while they carried out a more thorough investigation. To make matters worse for her, she was married, and her relationship came to an end after all the repercussions. There were many rumors claiming the prisoner was actually her husband, but it was quickly refuted, as although they look similar, they are not the same person. A murderer responsible for a double homicide asked the judge to swap his life sentence for the death penalty and got what he wanted. Stephen Lorenzo was on trial for the murders of 2 young men in 2003. Up until 2022, the defendant fought the case, but things changed when he pleaded guilty to killing them. The victims were lured by him through a chat. Both were gay, and after meeting them, the killer seduced them, drugged them, tortured them, and assaulted them before taking their lives. Although Judge Christopher Sabella agreed to sentence Lorenzo to the death penalty, he emphasized that the decision was not made because of the inmate's request, but rather by following the law and respecting the wishes of the victim's relatives, as reported by Fox 13 News. In his words, Lorenzo stated that the death penalty would be in his interest, basically because it would be a relief for him to lose his life rather than spend his entire life in jail with no chance of getting out and starting over. Several inmates at the Pedrenas Penitentiary Complex in the state of Maranhão in Brazil captured on a phone the brutality and savagery experienced in Brazil's prison system. The images, released in 2014, were sent to a São Paulo newspaper by a prison guards union, and they show several detainees who had been beheaded, while others take advantage of the moment to pose for pictures next to the bodies. The horror of the footage quickly made headlines and was featured in countless news outlets after its disclosure. The overcrowded jail was designed to hold up to 1,700 inmates, as mentioned in a report by the National Justice Council, but at the time, the number exceeded around 800 more detainees. According to experts, this problem, combined with corruption, poor conditions, and lack of public investment, is a main factor behind this extreme violence. In 2013 alone, more than 60 prisoners were killed in the same complex. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.